true solitude is rare in Britain today. But out where the sea wind blows, under the widest skies in Europe, one last great wilderness lies undisturbed. For man to venture here is dangerous. Yet estuaries are magical places, subject to sudden shifts of mood, washed by light that is always changing. In Britain, there are well over 500,000 acres like this, where only birds may safely go. Their emptiness is an illusion. Beneath the surface, they ooze with life. These mud banks are a vital winter larder for millions of birds, but feeding time is strictly limited. At low water, the flats seem to reach forever, but 6 hours from now, they'll all be lost to the sea. The tide is the driving force, the natural imperative, which dominates the lives of the birds who feed here. The tides are pulled by the power of the moon, a pulse from the heavens as old as time. A full moon or a new moon brings the biggest tides. In this restless world of fluid frontiers, all life dances to the turn of the tide. An hour to daybreak, and the tide is coming in. Barnacle geese, winter visitors from the Greenland tundra. During the night, they've been sleeping far out on these Hebridean mudflats where they're safe from foxes. Now the tide has turned, and they're being driven off their roost, flight after flight. By sunrise, the tide is in full flood, driving off the last stragglers. The barnacle geese pour in from the sea, spilling the wind to tumble earthwards in a sudden rush of wings. They'll feed all day in the coastal fields, a conquering army, thousands strong. Each autumn, swarms of knot arrive from the high Arctic. Nearly 1/3 of these marathon migrants will stay here through the winter. Of all Britain's natural spectacles, there is nothing to match these huge migrations of wintering waders. All morning, the knot have been pouring in to roost as the tide has pushed them off their feeding grounds. Now, gathered in their jostling masses, they settle down, waiting for the tide to fall. Mid-morning, and the tide is in. The creeks are brimming. Each muddy artery has filled until it can hold no more. Now the tide is at a standstill, and a strange sense of lethargy hangs over the estuary. Even the wind has died. An hour later, at the very fingertips of the longest creeks, a subtle change is taking place. The water is on the move again. The ebb tide has begun. The knots, too, are beginning to stir on their roost. Somehow they seem to know that out on the sandbanks the tide is falling back. Suddenly, as if at a hidden signal, they're away. The knot are heading for the first sandbars to become exposed. Already the banks are crowded with hungry birds. Gradually, the birds have spread out all over the estuary in their hunt for food. Many different species reap this winter harvest, with different beaks or longer legs, designed by nature for their own particular niche, each a different key in a different lock. Redshank patrol the tide's edge, probing for tiny marine snails. Dunlin forage in the shallows, but even when feeding, they must always be watchful. A peregrine. Every winter they come to the estuary to hunt. It's looking for stragglers. To dive into a dense flock is to risk collision. The swirling knots stick close together. It's the only way they may survive. The peregrine leaves without a kill. As the panic subsides, calm returns to the estuary. It's midday, and the winter sun will climb no higher. The tide, too, will fall no further. By now, it has sucked every last drop out of the creeks and saltings. The day has reached its lowest ebb. The birds are still there, but dispersed now across an infinity of mud and sandbanks, lost in the endless no man's land that lies between the tides. Still, the search for food goes on. Many of these waders are just passing through, urgently refueling before the arduous journey south to southern Europe and Africa. Low water is the only time when humans can safely venture out to join the birds. But time it wrong or walk too far from firmer land, and you are sure to drown. While the waders are still far out on their feeding grounds, the barnacle geese are also busy. For them, the mud banks are simply a roosting place. To feed, they flock to the rich grassland at the edge of the estuary. Now, in the shortening winter days, the geese spend every minute feeding and fattening, clipping the sweet coastal pasture. They'll venture no further south. They've reached their final wintering grounds. It's not only geese which frequent these grassy shorelines. Curlews hunt for worms. And wild duck come to dabble. Widgeon, the drakes with chestnut heads and buff crowns, graze the grass lawn short, their whistling cries unmistakable. A whooper swan, a wild voice from Iceland, comes south to escape the long Arctic winter. But even here, the biting winds may follow, the chill echo of the stormy weather the birds have left behind. Only the common seals seem immune to the weather. They spend their whole lives in the eye of the wind. In the wake of the storm, the tide is turning. The tide tears in as fast as a galloping horse, but still the retreating armies of waders feed on. The day is drawing to a close. The tide is up. The birds are heading to their roost. Life in the estuary has come full circle. Towards evening, dense swarms of knot take to the air, a languid ballet played out in the deepening light. There's a wildness about these birds, a scent of the Arctic. Free spirits from the boundless tundra, they owe no allegiance except to the seasons and the twice-daily tug of the tide. A solitary redshank feeds on in the afterglow. The air grows colder. The estuary sinks back into silence. Now, out on the edge between earth and sky, there is nothing but space and solitude and peace beyond price.